lot of restrictions and guidelines. Retail is allowed to open, so all of Collegeville's jewelry stores, Matone's, Records, any other retail store can open, but they're supposed to exercise caution, and they're also encouraged to use curbside pickup and ordering. If someone wants to go into the store, they can. So if you want to go into the Benjamin Moore paint store and pick out wallpaper or paint, you can. And then they'll just watch so that there's only a few people in the store at a time. Then for the restaurants, indoor dining is still prohibited, but now outdoor dining is allowed. So that is something, the fact that we're going into summer, that quite a few of the restaurants are interested in. And we want to help our businesses as much as possible to get through this. And one of the things Jeff and I talked about was the borough's signage ordinance. And Jeff, I believe you talked about you're like looking the other way if for these businesses, they want to put out their own signs. What we thought we'd do is kind of like a moratorium, just so they can get through this shutdown, that they can post their own signs to let people know they're open, like the Collegeville Diner and other stores. And that is really being well received. I bounced it off quite a number of the businesses, and they said that would help them out. So what we thought we'd do is draft some guidance for the businesses during this time, and it would just be until they can start getting their customers back. So is there any discussion on that? We're no further on it than just this idea, but wanted to bring that up tonight. Does that sound okay to everybody? Are there any objections? No?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Good. Okay, well then Jeff and I will work together on that one. So then moving on to the Communications Committee, that would be Shannon, who isn't here. I don't think Terry Stagliano is, I don't think she's.
I'm sorry, Kathy. I thought you were going to still say some more about the COVID-19.
Oh, well, you can.
I thought your question was really about the signage and not the entire piece.
Yeah, right. I was just dealing with signage.
Oh, okay. And this actually may have more to do with Parks and Recreation, but one of the concerns I do have is if you're talking about COVID-19, I think it would be helpful to think in terms to have something about what we're planning on doing with Parks and Recreation as well. As to whether or not there will be, say for instance, the restroom facilities, as to whether or not they'll be closed, or whether or not all the playground equipment will be.
Yes, actually, Kathy's going to talk about that under Parks.
Okay, all right.
Yes, because now that up to 25 people can gather, we can discuss allowing our playground equipment to be used again in the parks. So yes, you're just ahead of us as usual, 8SAN. Craig, did you want to talk about CTMA?
Well, I want to talk about the regional sewer first. There's an update on that I heard at the public works meetings, and that is that you know, they've had different issues with environmental animals in the area, and they on the Perkiomen Creek they had a issue with turtles, and now there's a huge issue with a nest on their route at Arcola Road, and that's going to cost about $1 million to that project, because they have to wait until August to do that. And that means they have to move a lot of materials and supplies to different areas and a lot of logistics. But there was a long discussion about that as far as the sewers. So I'll just make that that discussion separate from CTMA. As far as CTMA, I think we've already discussed one of the discussion items that's most important to us. Weren't a lot of things on the agenda, but the one thing we did talk about was the security at the parking lot in at the waterworks. And so I'm going to let Valerie kind of take charge of that and do the rest of that discussion.
Val,
You're
unmute
muted.
yourself.
You're muted.
I'm muted, sorry. Right now, we're just looking into what options we have, so we don't have anything to share right now, just that we're looking into our options.
So I've asked Valerie to kind of take the point on that because she lives, her backyard backs up to the park. She sees what's going on in that parking lot. And so I've asked her to kind of take the lead to look into some ideas we're discussing.
Craig, I have a question on the, going back to that $1 million of adding on. Do we know where that money comes from? How does that impact us? Is that split up between the townships? Is that state and us?
It's obviously got to be spread out. It's a new, I don't know what they call a work order or change order. You know, it's just added to the contract and we pay a proportional amount. I'm not sure what our proportional amount, because that's a huge contract. I'm not sure how much we pay, what percentage we're in for that.
That would just be ratepayer money.
They are going to look into that before the next meeting to determine what exactly adds up to the $1 million. They want justification. They are going to ask for justification for that amount of money.
So would that be next year's budget, Jeff?
Well, if it's ratepayer money, it comes out of the joint public works budget and, you know, the public. So I think that's, it probably doesn't impact this because it's just the rate of what they charge for sewer.
Okay.
Now this is regional sewer you're talking about, Craig, correct? Well, that's basically ratepayer money. I mean, I'm not sure how they financed it, but it's all ratepayer money with all the, who's ever involved in the regional sewer authority.
Great, thank you.
And is that it? Oh, or CT? Oh, is that it for CTMA or haven't we? Yeah. Craig, so, oh yeah, okay.
That's it.
Marion, did you want Craig to do public works or how did you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We followed up on it. I think we covered everything that the big things that came out of that meeting was wanting to make sure that we paid our bill.
Okay, that's good.
Unless you want to add anything, Craig. I mean, when we talked, there wasn't, yeah. So that's what came out of that meeting.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. Val, do you have anything for regional planning? Yep, unmute yourself.
I'll get this by the time we're done doing Zoom. So we did meet on May 18th, and we discussed where we were in the creation of the Central Perkiomen Valley Regional Map. And the map is going to have two parts. We had talked about this at previous meetings, but just to update the people that are listening in. So the first part is going to be a story map, and that's going to be a guideline for people that are interested in using the Perkiomen Trail, just to give them information about the trail. And the second is a web map. And with that, locations were already added, and they're going to be adding some more locations. So the county will continue to work on adding the descriptions and photos of these locations. And the locations are points of interest along the trail that people might be interested in. Things like trailheads, bathrooms, where there's a water fountain, where they might be able to get some refreshments along the trail if they come off, that kind of thing. The next step for the county is they're going to be working on graphs and on final map changes and promotional materials. And we also talked about the Monco 2040 grants. And two of the ones that we talked about were ones that Collegeville was involved with. And the first one was the application for the Creekside Park That's the one that's down off of First Avenue. And that is going to just be for the restoration of the boat ramp, the boat launch ramp, parking, picnic area, things like that, landscaping. And the second application was for a joint partnership with, there's a whole list, the Perkiomen and Watershed Conservancy, Schwanksville, the Montgomery County Park Trail and Historic Society, Marlborough Township, Upper Salford, Lower Frederick, Skipback, Lower Providence. And that's for signage for the system's water trail. And that's to help people navigate the creek and to use public access areas. Jeff, do you want to have anything to do with, you want to say anything about these?
The Monco 2040 grant, the recipients are supposed to be announced tomorrow at the Montgomery County Commissioners meeting. So we should know tomorrow or Friday if we got awarded the money for the boat ramp project.
So hopefully we'll get those grants. And we did add another meeting to our calendar, which will be June 15th. So we don't usually have a meeting in June, but we will this time. And then we're also having the July meeting, and that'll be on July 20th.
Okay, thanks so much, Val.
Okay.
Moving on to the Planning Commission, Jeff.
The Planning Commission met in May 21st and discussed the ordinance that would basically allow townhomes on the old Reese property. They had a very long discussion, about a 2-hour meeting, and discussed the ordinance. Pretty fruitful discussion, in my opinion. But what you have on your agenda tonight is basically to authorize scheduling a public hearing to solicit public comments regarding the ordinance. That public hearing would be July 1st. And we were thinking at 6 p.m. because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of public interest in the project. Now, that's the only thing you need to authorize tonight if council so chooses. You're not voting on the ordinance, you're not voting on the project or anything like that. At the public hearing, what you would do is take public comments regarding the ordinance, explain the ordinance, and then you could take a vote on the ordinance if you would want to. What we're asking council tonight is take a vote on whether or not you want to just advertise the public hearing regarding the ordinance. And I don't know if Dan wants to add anything to that, but that's what was discussed at the Planning Commission meeting and will be discussed again at their June, I believe it's June 18th meeting. We're gonna rehash it again. They basically got 99% of it done. They had some changes that had to go back to Montgomery County Planning Commission for their blessing. And then it's gonna come back to our Planning Commission at the June 18th meeting. And they can vote it up or down, or anticipating they're gonna vote it up, or at least recommend to council that you approve it. But to do that, for you guys to approve it, you have to hold a public hearing. And like I said, I don't know if Dad wants to add anything to that process, but that's what's on the agenda tonight.
No, really, Jeff, you covered it. It had to go back to the Montgomery County Planning Commission because there were some minor changes made to the ordinance. So the county wants to see it again. The rules require that. And then it can come back to the borough for consideration.
Can you discuss the changes in the ordinance, like what changes were made?
They were minor, like there was some language about white vinyl that we just changed to vinyl. There was a calculation as far as the density goes, how that was going to be calculated. We reduced the maximum before was 20 townhouses per acre, and that was reduced to 18 townhouses per acre, or dwelling units really per acre. And there was some other minor changes that were made, but those were, that was kind of the nature of the changes.
just to bring it up, I know some council members has concern about density of the project. And I know Chris Canavan, the one who's worked from WB Homes, who's pushing the project for them, he's more than willing to meet with any council member or group of council members to discuss the project, or even take a tour of this similar project that they did in Lansdale. He'd be glad to do that. I know he's listening tonight. He's in listening to the meeting, so you might get a better idea of what they're planning on, how everything works, if you want to do that.
What, do we have a current ordinance or requirement of development?
So what it is, Marion, is the ordinance is a zoning change, right? So there's 4 parcels there on the other side of Main Street, which will be rezoned from industrial to Main Street commercial residential, a new zoning district in the borough. So that's really what this process is about. It's not really about the project yet. It's really just about that zoning, rezoning of those 4 properties. And of course, they will be in that zoning district, that new zoning district, if you choose to enact it, will allow townhouses.
What's the current zoning other in around that area for?
It's, yeah, so it's industrial, and on the other side, I think it's R3, is that right, Jeff? On the other side of Chestnut?
Yeah, I mean, for the residential, because it's going to turn residential. So you're making it more like the residential that's around it. What's the zoning in terms of building around it?
There's R3 across the street, residential 3.
So the
Generally,
density-
there's single, if your question is, Gary, they're generally single family homes, basically. Is that your question, the type of home?
Yeah, that's what, yeah. So we're going from single family to,
Right. I mean, I guess the general thought here is this will be sort of a transition area between, you know, the Main Street commercial and the R3 single family home. So it's sort of a transition area, and it's where folks that want to, you know, experience the downtown life. It's what they would like to have. They wouldn't like the single family homes. They more would like the townhouse experience. So this seems like a good product for this area, just off the Main Street commercial district.
And what exactly is the ordinance to change it to?
So it's going from industrial, it's currently zoned industrial, and it's going to Main Street commercial residential. It's a new type of residential district. And I can send if council would like, I can send the current version of the ordinance out to everyone so you can see it, the one that went to the county.
That would be,
You're muted again, Valerie.
You're muted, Valerie.
oh, okay. When you said it's a new zoning, I'm still muted.
I agree.
No, you were unmuted. Now you're muted again.
Hold on, you're still muted, Valerie.
Still muted.
How's
There you go,
now?
you're unmuted now, perfect.
Okay. Sorry. When you said it's a new zoning, that's just new to us. We don't
Yes.
have any other zoning like that. But there
No,
is
you do
zoning
not.
like that around us somewhere in other municipalities?
Yes, there's Main Street commercial residential zoning districts in other municipalities in the area. It's some places it's called slightly different names, but it's basically residential area. It's usually allowed to be a little bit more dense than an R1 and R2 and R3 because it's close to the downtown, and it's like Dave Lay said, it's transitional in
Okay.
between zoning districts.
And we carried most of the uses over from the R3 zoning districts. I mean, things that are permitted in R3 would be permitted in this district.
Okay, so I guess for me, I'm just I'm all for, you know, the whole residential, like the ordinance and moving forward on that. I guess when I hear dense and, you know, moving, I feel like, you know, there's going to be a cramming of all of these homes into the small little area that concerns me. And so I guess, I mean, we'll get to that later on in the presentation, whenever that happens, when it comes time for the builders to come over and to, you know, to present. I just want to be really, I don't know, I guess I just want to be really careful with what we're going to be approving, that we don't end up with having like, 40 homes in a space that should only fit 24.
And that kind of circles back to where Jeff started, because as a luxury we have, Lansdale, the product they built in Lansdale is going to be very, very similar to what they're proposing here. So we have the ability to look at that and say, is this what we're looking for or not? So we can look at a product that's been, I think there's 2 phases. I think the first one's probably been around 7 or 8 years, Jeff. I'm just trying to think, but and so I think we can look at what they've done and see what we like and maybe what we don't like about it, and take that to the council meeting when we have our hearing.
I think that's a great idea, Dan.
I think so too.
Doing
But could
that
you also,
tour.
would you be able to explain everything, maybe send us something in writing with regards to R1, R2, R3 and the differences, so we're all on the same page and have an understanding of what we're approving or what we're not approving or what we like and don't like, so we have a clear understanding of what that means in zoning language?
Marion, my next question was pretty much the same thing, but I want to compare it to something we have, and that is, David, if you think about that question, how does this compare to the townhouses at Park Avenue and 3rd Avenue? So you've got 2 sets of townhouses on each side of that intersection.
Yeah, we can certainly lay out, I mean, I can lay out each residential zoning district and this proposed residential zoning district and kind of do a chart and say, okay, this is what's allowed in each one. So you can
I'm
see
just
the
thinking
difference.
about townhouses to townhouses, existing townhouses, what do they represent? Because we can see them. We can see what they look like, what the density looks like, and we can see what their zoning is compared to what's being proposed is what I'm thinking about.
Mm-hmm. That too, like I'd like to see that as well.
Is there a way that we can get the address for the Lansdale properties and we could drive there and not go through the homes, but drive around that neighborhood? And the residents of Collegeville can also drive over there and see, especially the people that are going to be the neighbors of this proposed district.
Yeah, I know at the planning commission, Chris Canavan, who I believe is listening tonight, he offered to give a tour of that to anyone. And we can certainly get the address out there available for everyone to go. But if you want to meet with Chris and talk about the project, he's certainly willing to do that as well.
That's a great idea, but if we can get the address for our residents,
I can't
so
give
they
you
can go at their own
a
time.
specific address, but they're located on Cannon Avenue, just off of Main Street. So if you know Lansdale, there's a 7-Eleven on Main Street. They're right behind the 7-Eleven on Main Street in Lansdale. So
I
it's
can send
Cannon
it to,
Avenue and what's that, Jeff?
No, I can send it to everybody where it is. I'll send them a map or whatever. But
Thank you.
again, for council's, planning commission is going to discuss this again at the June 18th meeting. And at the last meeting, we give them everything, which probably I should have handed out tonight, all the proposed plans of the townhouse development, which WB Homes provided. Gives you kind of an overview of the location and how many townhomes they want to put in, the landscaping. Just a proposal, it's not the full plan. But I can distribute all of those for everybody so you can take a look at them. But again, the planning commission is going to rediscuss the ordinance again at the June 18th meeting. So I would recommend you tune in.
I just have a question. This zoning ordinance would change the number of allowed townhouses from 12.5 per acre to 20 per acre?
Right now, the draft is, the maximum is 18 per acre. So in R3, I believe it's 12.5 is the maximum number off the top of my head. And in this zoning district, the maximum would be 18 if they reduce the impervious space that's on that property by the maximum amount allowed. That's the thought.
That was my initial concern.
So it still, they came in with 40 a proposal of 40 townhouses, and that's exactly what they would be allowed under the ordinance. Correct?
Yeah, if they reduce, so they get a bonus, right? So they have a base number of townhouses that are allowed. Then for every 2.5% of impervious space, so that entire property there is all built up right now, almost 100% impervious space. So they're going to make it better by reducing that down to about 70%. So the thought is that by doing that, they get a bonus to put in more, a density bonus to put in more additional townhouses because they were reducing the amount of impervious space. Did I get that right, Dave?
You did, yes, exactly. So the end result will be a denser townhouse community. However, it'll be much greener than it is in its current condition, much greener.
Well, of course it will be, because right now there's nothing there. There's no grass there. I mean, we're going to be rezoning it. I mean, I just think that putting 40 spaces and 40 homes into a space, like you're almost doubling and that's my concern. Like it's going to be this scrunched in sardine looking in. I've just got some concerns. I mean, I definitely want to see what's on Lansdale, and I think that I don't like the argument of, well, there's going to be grass there. Like right now, there's no grass there. Of course there isn't, but I don't think that that's a good enough argument to put 40 homes there or 40 townhouses that, 12.5 on an acre, and then you're going to increase that to 18. That's the question that I asked with regards to, is it going to be more homes? And I've just got concerns, that's all.
I'd like to see the space, and I get the open space too, but I'm not concerned necessarily about the houses, but the parking. I came from Limerick in town and parking, and if the impervious space, the more people you put in there, the more cars you put in there, where are all the extra cars going to go? So,
and where's the fire truck going to get through if there's an emergency? Like if you need, first responders, how is that going to happen? Because I went to that other town. We drove around the other townhouses up across the bridge, and let me tell you something. I hope nothing ever happens over there, because it's going to be a hot mess.
Is there a way that we can change the zoning, but within that, try and keep the same number of homes per acre?
Yeah, I mean, the ordinance is entirely within your hands, right? So you don't have to, it's not anything you have to do. You certainly can leave it industrial if you like. You could make it R3. You could make it any type of zoning you would like. This is just a proposal that has been brought forward. If you look at the ordinance next month and you decide this is too dense, or I don't like townhouses that close to the downtown, or whatever aspect you don't like, you can disapprove it. There's no requirement for you to approve it. You can change it and do that as well.
Well, I just want to be clear. If we want to change the actual zoning, are we locked into a certain number of homes per acre? Or can we change the zoning to a Main Street commercial / residential, but we get to decide the cap limit of homes in that zoning?
No, you decide. You can put as many homes or as few as homes as you want.
Okay.
Of course, the risk you have in doing that is your developer might walk away.
Well, we want to be reasonable. We want to be reasonable, but not live in a sardine can.
No, that makes sense. And that's certainly been the concerns, parking, density, the 2 planning commission meetings we've had, those have been the main concerns from folks who have attended.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we've had some good discussion of these issues, and definitely following this meeting, I'm going to follow up with Jeff, and we'll reach out to Chris and see if we can't get a date at the council members. If you want to go to Lansdale and have Chris give us a tour of his townhomes there, and we can actually ask Chris our questions directly, that will be good. And there'll be several opportunities for residents to hear all the latest about the townhomes and to ask questions, both at the June 18th Planning Commission meeting and then at the proposed public hearing that's going to be at 6 p.m. on July 1st, an hour before our July meeting.
Hey,
So-
Kathy?
Yeah.
Kathy, can I just make one comment? Dan,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know who said this, but with the risk of the developer walking away, I guess the one thing that always is an activator for me is when comments like that are made, right? Because now all of a sudden decisions are made based on fear, right? And I think that the borough, we're going to be asking a lot of questions and they may be uncomfortable, right? And not that the developer has never heard those before, but what I don't want is for council to be told or to be like, well, the developer's going to walk away and then we're rushed into making a decision because we don't want to lose a developer. Well, wait for another developer, or who knows what's going to happen. But I just want to put that out there because I think, making statements like that is just really, I don't know. I was just a little activated. I know what you're saying, Dan, with regards to us asking, but I do think that if people are going to be coming into our community, we have the responsibility of doing what's right and to making sure that we're taking all of our constituents with first responders to our neighbors, to the cars, to traffic, to everything into consideration. So I just needed to say that.
Okay.
No, I understand.
Okay, thanks, Marion. So I am going to need a motion to advertise the scheduling of a public hearing on July 1st at 6 o'clock.
So moved.
Oh,
Second.
wait, I'm not finished. To solicit public comments regarding the Main Street Commercial Residential Zoning District. So moved by Marion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Gary, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Motion carries. So we will have that meeting. Now we'll move on to Kathy.
Hey, Kath?
Yeah.
So just so, do you want me to send out an email to see who wants to take a tour?
Yeah, why don't you find out from Chris when he's available? We'll start with his schedule, and then that would be great if you send the background materials that you mentioned, the latest planning, or the latest of the WB Townhome plans, and the latest rezoning that is going before the Planning Commission. Then
Okay,
we'll put that package together and then check everybody's schedule. That would be
sounds good.
Before we
Jeff,
move
one
on, Alex Tweedy asked that the planning commission be included on that tour, which I said I totally agree with. So
Well,
there's no
either,
reason they couldn't be.
yeah, I mean, we can invite them. Or maybe we want to do 2 tours if we have too many people. We'll figure it out.
It could be worked out. Yeah, I agree. I mean, we need to let them see a visual of a similar development at the same time.
Mhm.
And I think we should also do it on a Saturday and not just on their schedule, only because
Good, yeah.
if we're trying to figure out what it is, if you do it on a Monday afternoon when a lot of people are at work, you're not getting a real feel. Again, coming from a townhome, it's that Saturday, Friday nights, not necessarily now because not everybody's going out, but Saturdays and Sundays when everybody's there is when you're going to really get a feel of what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
I'm sure Chris will make himself available whenever you want. So,
Great. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, Kathy, moving on to parks.
Okay, so as far as the work being done there, the drainage has been completed, the ball fields have been graded, and that all looks really good. I'm waiting on an estimate for a fence, and Jeff is trying to figure it out for me if we have any money coming from that was not used for plowing that we could use for the fence or whatever. And I'm hoping to get 3 trees. I picked out a couple so we can get a price on them. So we hopefully will get those put in shortly. And as far as the opening the parks, I go over there at least once a week and walk around, and I noticed more and more trash and people are pulling the police tape off. So the park is definitely already being used. I think yesterday I picked up a couple pizza boxes and maybe 20 or more bottles. So there's a lot of people going in that park. So, and I don't think that it makes sense to be kicking them out. I think what we need to look at is, how can we keep it clean as far as the playground area goes and the pavilion? What the cost is going to be? Would we do it every day? I know there's some examples of other areas where we can take a look and see how, what they're doing. But the basketball court is being used. I don't think the playground is being used as much, but definitely the pavilion and the basketball court. So I would recommend opening it as safely as we can. I don't know how everybody else feels about that.
Let me just add a couple of comments. Thanks a lot, Kathy.
Okay.
One of the groups that I meet with is a local mayors group of about 8 or 9 of us that are mayors generally around this area, and we had conversations about what might be some of the steps of moving from red to yellow, and I think one of the biggest areas that this group talked about was around the parks. And the majority, not all of them, but the majority of them are trying to make sure that the pavilion areas are not open, to try to encourage not having large groups. So they try to keep that so in our case, if we were to do that, not have the pavilion area open, signage saying that the bathroom is not being serviced. And there was another thing I was going to say, and then wherever possible, to try to put some space between some of the playground equipment. And the only thing I can think of in our case would really have to do with the swings that in that case, sometimes it would take down, say, every other swing, so that there would at least be built-in social distance between children and parents in the swinging. That said, not everybody's doing that, but that was one of the discussions that they were talking about. There's something that they thought would be both in the spirit of trying to move from red to yellow, but not all the way to green, and trying to keep as much at-risk behavior in check. So I just throw that in for the discussion as well.
Jeff just brought up a point that the pavilion at that park is very small. And you couldn't, and if 25 people are allowed to gather now, is that right, Kathy? Yeah. Then you couldn't even get, I don't know, 10 people in there maybe, 12 people, I don't know. So, maybe the other parks have larger pavilions.
Yeah, I'm just saying that just in theory, this is what they were talking about. I don't know how that applies in our case.
Right.
Kathy,
Yeah, I just don't know how since people are in there already, I just don't know how you police it. And I don't know.
Well, I think part of the issue, period, both in terms of the governor's order, mandate, recommendation, is that there's really no policing. These are, for the most part, I think that these are very strong recommendations.
Okay.
And we're not policing except in the cases of very egregious behaviors. But I think we're just trying to figure out what we can do to make it as safe as possible.
Okay, that makes sense.
the idea is more about social distancing. It's not about capacity. So that if we have the capacity for 25 people in that space, we probably, could only have a third of that to have safe social distancing in that little space.
Right.
So that's something we need to look at and maybe post some signs for recommendations.
Right, that makes sense that we could put up signs and let them know what is recommended for the pavilion, for the playground. I mean, I did read that some of the areas are not opening up their basketball courts. They're opening up other activities, but because it's almost impossible if you're playing a basketball game to social distance.
Is there a way that we can do those signs and say, remember the hand sanitizer? Just things like that. And if you close down the basketball courts, then you're prohibiting, somebody from just shooting hoops by themselves too.
Right.
So reminding signs.
How about if we put a hand sanitizer dispenser at a place near the pavilion that everybody can see?
It's more
Didn't-
stuff
didn't
coming
we-
out of your
yeah.
mouth that's a problem.
And we have to keep it
Yeah.
filled, and then it's unattended, and it could be, emptied in the middle of the night by teenagers or vandals. Whoever.
Well, it can be emptied. I don't know if it can be vandalized. If it could be, I wouldn't worry as much about being emptied as I would about being adulterated.
When I mean emptied on purpose, all at once.
I get that, but I'm just saying that if it's empty, it's empty. But if somebody puts something bad in there, that could be worse.
Yeah.
My thought is that I think signage is what we can do, educate that we're still serious about social distancing, but I think what it's going to come down to is people's choices and how they react. We can't police it, and if we can't police it in it or make any type of, if you put tape up, you're going to rip it down, and then it looks like you just have ripped tape all over the place. It's going to look worse. And if there's 25 people and there should only be 15 under that area for social distance, we can't do anything about it either. So to me, it would be just, recommendations of what we recommend under there. And then I think most of it comes down to people making choices on their own.
All right, I think what I'll do is I'll have a parks meeting maybe later on this week or next week, and then we'll figure out what we want to say on the notices, and just get everybody together that's on the parks committee. If anybody in the community wants to say something, and then just kind of map out a proposal of how to open them and what's acceptable and what's not.
Okay, Kathy, does that, I like what Gary said too.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we keep this simple, if we well, first of all, we have 3 parks we need to talk about. So for Community Park, if we just open it up, take down the police tape, and then in the signs, we let people know that they are still supposed to social distance, gatherings are limited to 25, and that it's up to each parent or person to sanitize the equipment. That gets us out of the sanitation business. And I think any moms and dads with kids would be, carrying around that stuff anyway, and wouldn't let their kids play on any equipment unless they wiped it all down first. And then if you decide on the signs with the Parks Committee, that way we've let people know that they should be responsible. Waterworks Park is jointly owned by Trapp and Collegeville, and Mara, the borough manager, has already told us what she would like to do is that she would just like to open up her parks and again, just do signage and depend on the people to exercise good judgment. So we would just open up Waterworks Park for the playground. That's got a big pavilion, but frankly, I mean, if people are going to like do a family reunion and ignore all of it, it's not going to matter whether they do it in our park or someplace else. And then,
Yeah, you know what, Kathy? We were driving, Taylor and I were driving by there the other night, and there were teenagers that were just hanging out on the table, not the pavilion, but the table, They were not social distancing. They were not wearing masks
Yep.
and just doing their thing. And so, I mean,
And yeah,
I was concerned for them.
yeah, exactly, Marion, because, I mean, we're not going to change their behavior. It doesn't matter what we do, so. And then our third park is Huntsberger Woods, and that's more of a natural place. There's really no playground equipment. It's just woods and to walk through. So I think we're good there. So, I mean, what does that sound? Does that sound okay to everybody?
That sounds good.
Yeah?
Yep.
I do have a question for Jeff. In regard to the trash that's in the Collegeville Park, is that because Waterworks wasn't doing their regular trash pickup in the park because the park was closed down?
Talking about Waterworks Park?
No, Collegeville Park, the park downtown.
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to talk to Joe. I know they empty the trash at least once a week.
Once a week, right. So I'm thinking maybe they weren't doing it as often because the park was kind of closed down, and that's why there was so much trash. I mean, 3 pizza boxes is a lot.
Wasn't in the trash
It might have just been some kids just decided to have a little gathering there and decided not to pick up their trash. So
All right, I just wanted to make sure that the trash was still being picked up.
it is.
Okay.
Jeff, I have a question. For the trees that are going in, do we have the money from the 8th Avenue projects to pay for those trees?
can.
Because we should have money for that, right?
How much was that? I forget.
I thought that they were putting in 8, they were supposed to put in 8 trees.
Yeah, I think it was 8 trees, and I'm trying to remember the dollar value per tree. We were getting a couple $100, so maybe like $3,000 total.
I forgot about that. I mean, yeah. I mean,
So if we're using that money, that, you know, we should be able to get the trees and pull it out of those funds so it's not coming out of general funds.
yeah, I had forgotten about that funding. So
Great.
Good point, Gary.
Yeah.
And when they go in, who takes care of them to make sure they're watered and stuff so they don't die right away? Because
our landscaper takes care of those. His name's Sam Gentile. He takes care of all the trees and the beds at the park, like the Veterans Memorial, and he takes care of the Borough Hall beds. He would get the tree and put it in for us and take care of it.
all right, great. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on the parks? Want to talk about? Okay. Then moving on to the Personnel Committee, no report. Craig, do you have a report from Streets, Public Safety and Lighting?
Well, we do. We actually canceled our last meeting last week because we didn't think much was on it. But as we discussed earlier, the issues at Waterworks Park and the after hours issues are a big public safety concern to our community, since we jointly own that park, and the Collegeville residents are the recipients of seeing what's going on there after hours. So that was discussed, and we've discussed it earlier tonight. The other thing I want to bring up is that Chief Butcher has done a fabulous job of working on Park Avenue, and I'd like him to give us an update on what they've done there.
Okay.
Bart, are you there?
Is he muted?
No.
Maybe he can do that whether when his report comes.
Bart?
I can tell you all the signs have been put up. All of them have been put up. So I think
No,
the
I
only
think-
ones we're waiting on yet are some signs that go down, no truck signs that go down near the post office, so the post office trucks don't go that way. I think that would be it then. Joe had to order those signs.
I think what we've seen has been a good start to that project, because I drive that way frequently, and I really believe that the speed limit is gone down. Not the speed limit. The absolute speed has gone down. I think people are driving more carefully there. I agree with Bart that we need some more signs for the post office route. I was going to the post office a couple of days ago, and going over toward the post office, I saw a truck come out, a big white truck come out of the post office and turn left back up to Park Avenue. And then as I was going back home toward 29, another big white truck was coming that way. So those box trucks going in and out of the post office are a major problem there.
Bart doesn't have internet, so he can't get his communication through, so.
Okay. Is that it for your report, Craig?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Then moving on to administrative reports, engineers report, Dave.
Thank you, Kathy. Just a few project updates. First off, Royal Farms. If you've been by the site, you may have noticed some activity, not on the site, but on the surrounding roadways. That's not actually the contractor working, but PICO and their subconsultant or subcontractors doing line relocations in support of the project. Actual work on the site was potentially going to start next week, but at this point, I'm sure it's not. They still owe us signed land development agreements as well as recording of the land development plan. So there are certain things they still need to do before they can actually move to construction. So I think we're still a couple weeks away there. For the paving project, the concrete work has been completed, which is the ADA ramps down at 10th Avenue and Chestnut. The paving itself will not be coming in until at least, well, it will be probably early July because they have the same contractors paving our roads is working in Trap as well, and they can't get into Trap until the beginning of July. So it's going to be another month until they actually do the paving. And then finally, for our 3rd Avenue sidewalk project, we've gotten all the paperwork together. The contracts are executed. I'm still waiting on a potential start date. I followed up with the contractor again today, but I haven't heard back from him as to when he's planning on starting his work. So that's all I have.
Dave, is the 10th Avenue hump all ready to go into? Is that part of?
Yeah, that was an alternate on the project, and yeah, I mean, it was a nominal amount of money, so it will happen when they come in and do the paving.
Yeah, I know we talked about it before. I just wanted to make sure it was in the final.
All good.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Sure.
Yep, the solicitors report, Dan.
So 2 items to talk about tonight. They're both on the agenda. The first is the public hearing for Royal Farms, and the second would be the Human Relations Ordinance that's at the bottom of the agenda as an action item. So I'll talk about each of them separately and answer any questions you might have. So the Royal Farms situation, Royal Farms desires to sell wine and beer out of the store. And in order to do that, they have to have a liquor license, obviously. And the way they are going about getting one is they're going to transfer from another liquor license from within Montgomery County and have it apply here in Collegeville. The liquor law says that, liquor code says that you must, if you're going to do a liquor license transfer, you must allow the public to have comment on that transfer before the borough, before the municipality decides whether they're going to support that application or not. So that's what this would be, this hearing next month. There'll be a representative from Royal Farms there. He'll make a very short presentation, kind of explain what they would like to do there, and then there'd be a chance for public comment for you all to ask questions, and then ultimately you'll decide whether you want to support that liquor license transfer or not.
What's the date of that meeting?
It's the same as the council meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Dan, do we need a motion to schedule that public hearing? Do we need a formal motion tonight?
Yes, that's what I'd recommend.
Okay. I'd like to have a motion to schedule a public hearing to solicit public comments regarding the transfer of a restaurant liquor license to Royal Farms, and that would be scheduled during the July council meeting. So could I have?
So moved.
Second.
And Gary, second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Anything else, Dan? Just those
Yeah.
two?
Did you, so I was going to talk about the human relations ordinance briefly. So on your agenda as well as an action item is advertisement to adopt a human relations ordinance. And so this was something that came up since the last meeting. There was some interest in it. It's an ordinance that our firm is familiar with. We've drafted it, very similar ones to this, and several other municipalities. Basically, it's an anti-discrimination ordinance if you hadn't had a chance to read it in detail yet. It lays out the definitions of what types of discrimination are not permitted in Collegeville. And it creates a human relations commission, right? It's another body, a 5-individual commission who, if a complaint is made, if a discrimination complaint is made and referred to them, they investigate and they try to seek a resolution of that complaint. So that is the, without going into a lot more detail, we can, tonight all we're asking for is that it be advertised so that you all can consider adopting it at the next meeting. But I'm certainly willing to answer any questions you have about it tonight.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead. Any
Yeah, so-
questions?
go ahead, Craig.
I'm just wondering how many local municipalities have enacted something like this?
So what comes to mind is I know Jenkintown, Hatboro, Lansdale, Upper Moreland, West Norton. I'm not sure about East Norton. Norristown has, off the
Royersford,
top of my head.
Royersford has one. I think you mentioned Hatboro.
Hatboro has one.
So how is this going to be enforced? Like, who's going to be on the committee to like review and like has anybody talked with any of these municipalities of, what have been the complaints? How is the board created? Who investigates? How is this managed?
Yeah, so from experience, I can tell you that there's 5 folks that are appointed to the board. That's the way the ordinance is set up. So you all would, like you do with the ZHB or your various other committees you have, you would appoint those individuals to the commission, the Human Relations Commission. And then if a complaint comes in, then the chair of that committee appoints someone to investigate the complaint. They talk to the complainant, they take the information, try to, just to get a little bit more detail about it. And then after the complaint is accepted by the commission, then notice is sent to the individual who, the discriminator, the business or the landlord, whatever the case may be, and they have a right to be heard. They have a right to answer the complaint, and the commission considers the complaint and the answer, and then moves forward with the process, tries to resolve it via mediation, and goes about it that way. Of course, the individual making the complaint, this is just, they can still sue in the Court of Common Pleas if that's what they want to do. They have their other avenues. They can file a complaint with the state as well, with the HRC, with the state. But this is just another avenue they have. And it also, it sends a strong message from the elected officials about discrimination, I think, by passing an ordinance like this.
I like it. I mean, I think it's a great idea to have. I just, and I obviously, once the board is established, maybe even reviewing restorative justice practices that could be put in place of healing, right? When it comes to that, just to even as one option, maybe, I don't know.
And just, and you'd asked about other places. I can tell you from another municipality that I'm involved with, they've had one complaint in the last 2 years that their HRC has looked at. It's not something that they get every day or every month. They've gotten one in 2 years. But the other thing that their HRC has done is they've taken more of an educational role. Part of this is folks who are appointed to this commission can go to training sponsored by the state. And then their HRC has actually went out to businesses, local businesses, and provided education on anti-discrimination and things of that nature. So that's, it's not required by the ordinance, but certainly if folks want to do that, that's something they could do as well.
This is something that we had really wanted to explore much earlier on, actually a couple of years ago. The tone and tenor and the politics of our community was such that it would have really been an uphill battle to try to move this. I think that in addition to the actual policy role that the Human Relations Commission has, I think that what Dan is saying is probably the most important thing. The educative component of that, setting a culture, giving a strong signal to our community. We are becoming more diverse religiously, ethnically, gender, sexuality, all of those kind of things. And so I think it provides an opportunity, and particularly in light of many of the things that are happening in our country today, in terms of otherizing the folks that allow this kind of piece to be in place. I've seen nothing but good that come out of it in terms of the community.
I think it's a great idea.
Yep.
Well, it sounds like we're having the discussion now. So why don't we go ahead and make a motion to advertise the ordinance?
So moved.
Okay, so thank you. Marion has made a motion to advertise ordinance number 600, Human Relations Commission. Is there a second? Okay.
I'll second it.
Well,
Craig had his hand up already, was seconding
okay.
it.
We've done the discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. Thanks. Anything else, Dan?
No, that's it for now, Kathy. Thank you very much.
Okay. Jeff, you want to give us the manager's report?
I already had, just to let everybody know that Royal Farms is getting started. What Dave said, what you see down there is the moving utility poles. That's part of the project. And I expect them to get started within the next couple of months after they get all the documentation in. So that's all I have.
Okay. And
Question, Jeff.
Okay.
Is there a update on Speedway gas station? Is that closed permanently, or do we know?
I do not know. I've not heard anything from them about anything. I've been asking around and nobody knows.
yeah. Bart doesn't have an internet connection, so he can't give his report. Okay, well,
No.
we've got Bart's written report, and I don't think we have anybody from the Collegeville Fire Company with us.
I don't think so.
No. Okay, or trap ambulance. Moving on to Mayor Wright Riggins, the mayor's report.
Thank you very much, Kathy, and the rest of the committee. I just really wanted to make remarks in light of the George Floyd killing and the mood of our country and kind of where we are right now. I think that one of the challenges that we have is that racialization, racism, and violence have really been a part and parcel of this country even before its founding. And our refusal to address it, to repent of it, to deal with it, continues to raise its ugly head over the course of our history. And this is in many ways, but particularly I just really wanted to address that with regards to what is happening with people of color and specifically with African Americans in this country. I had another set of remarks that I was going to provide, but a friend of mine and a former resident of Collegeville who lived just down the street from here and moved recently, published some remarks in the Inquirer that I thought probably said it better, even better than I might be able to say it. Tracy Motley used to live right down the street here in Collegeville Crossing, and now lives in the Westchester area. And I'd like to read what she has to say. This is posted in the Inquirer today, and then it will be in the Sunday paper as well. She says, "Dear white friends," and I'm going to change some of this as it relates to my own particular report at the end, but says, "Dear white friends, I have known you for so long, and I'm so glad to call you my friend. But today I need to ask you to do me a favor. Please start being honest with yourself, your family, and your friends about the systemic racism that I and all other Black people face today. Now, before you eagerly agree because you are good-natured, kind, and value our friendship, here's what that looks like for me. You have to call people on their ignorance of what racial injustice looks like and to help you with that. I will share with you what it looks like to me. When Colin Kaepernick took a knee and protested police brutality against the African-American community, many white people took exception. He is disrespecting our flag and our country. But a white policeman took a knee on a Black man's neck and killed him. And now some white people want to take exception with that. Not all cops are like that. Not all cops are bad. Let me get real here for a minute. Yes, there are many exceptions to every rule. But for Black people, these are our exceptions. We teach our young Black men that if they are pulled over by police, do what they say. Follow the rules and everything will be okay, except Philandro Castile did exactly what was asked of him, and he was killed. We teach our Black men to eat right, exercise, enjoy great outdoors, except Ahmaud Arbery did just that, and he too was killed. We teach our young Black children it's okay to use their imagination and play pretend games, except Tamir Rice playing in the park with a gun, and he was killed. We teach our Black young men not to be alone with an unfamiliar white woman, except a white woman walked into Botham Jean's home, and they were alone, and he was killed. We teach our young Black men that if their car breaks down, law enforcement will help them, except that what happened to Terrence Pritchard, and he was killed. We teach our young Black men that sometimes it is better to take public transportation to avoid encounters with the policeman driving, except Oscar Grant did that, and he too was killed. We teach our young Black children that it's okay to be a regular teenager and walk through a nice neighborhood with a bag of candy in their hand, except Trayvon Martin did just that, and he was killed. So let me be clear about my request of you. As my white friend, is for you to acknowledge the current state of existence for Black people in this country without exception, to recognize and denounce systems of injustice in this country that are used to continue marginalization, intimidation, and degradation of Black people without exception. Let me just depart from her script for a moment to just share my own. I've lived in predominantly white communities for the last 50 years. And for the most part, it has been a good experience. Except that I need to say that I too oftentimes live in fear. I don't know what's going to happen or when it might happen. I've seen it with my sons, I've seen it with my daughter. And it's driving me a little crazy to live in a context in these yet to be United States where grown people and young people still have to live in fear. It would be one thing to say that this is happening somewhere out there. But just even yesterday, one of our county commissioners had the audacity to call Black Lives Matter a left-wing radical terrorist organization. And all that did for me was to remember the NAACP was called a communist organization. The organization that I was a part of, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, was called an outside agitating group. The Congress on Racial Equality considered a terrorist organization. And now here, even in Montgomery County, we have those who are at the top otherizing and stoking the fires of racial hostility. Having said all that, let me say this. I think it's really critically important that leadership really sets a tone. And one of the great things about a small community like ours is that our council, our chief of police, and our mayor all become those persons who can set a tone. I have had no problems at all with the tone and with the policies and with the practices of our community. I think we are doing well, but I pray that we continue to be vigilant with it. And I pray that we continue not only in our culture setting, but in our practices to do the same. So I am encouraged by the proposal to enact a Human Relations Commission. I'm working with Ursinus College to create events where dialogue might happen as opposed to demonization, so that our small community, which we've declared to be a great place to come home to, can continue to be that. I'm pleased to work with Bart Booker in terms of his leadership of the Collegeville Police Department. I've had no problems, and anything that hinted at being a problem has always been dealt with forthwith and directly. And I pray that our relationship, both professionally and personally, collegially, continues to act in that way, because I think that at heart, this is what happens. This is the kind of relationship and the kind of policies that we need, so that we don't have these kind of things happening here. I think it is important for us to remember that we need to be concerned about those in the margins of our society and those who are oftentimes marginalized. As long as I have an opportunity to use this particular platform, I intend to do just that. And I thank you for joining me in doing that same thing as well. So that's the end of the comments that I'd like to share tonight.
Okay. Anything else, Sade San?
I'm good.
Thank you very much. Loved it. Okay. Now I need the approval of the committee and administrative reports. So we need a motion to approve those reports.
So moved.
Okay, Marion, and second. Sorry, who was the second? Craig. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and none opposed, motion carried. We have the public comments section, but I don't see any chats that are open or any Q's and A's. So I think the public session is open, and it looks like the public session is closed if we don't get any questions down here, either in the chat box or the Q&A. Let me just see who's attending. Do any of you guys, Aileen, Dante, Heather, Linda, oh, it's Linda, it's your Linda, Craig, Penny and Suzanne, you have any questions? Okay. Oh, nope, thanks, Dante. Okay, moving on then. Let's see, action items. I'm trying to see somewhere. I want to make sure that we vote on the alternate for the zoning hearing board. And, oh, here it is. Okay. So action item 1, consideration of the Keystone Municipal Services inspection proposal. Jeff, could you fill us in on that?
Yeah. what I'm asking council to do is approve switching inspection companies. Currently, the company that does our building inspections, electrical, all that stuff, commercial inspections is LTL Consultants. Well, over the past few months, we've been having issues with billing and also how fast they get basically inspections and work completed. And I've had multiple conversations with their with the owners up there, and it's not being resolved. So what I did is went out and looked for a different company, and actually the company that I'm recommending, Keystone Municipal Services, we've had here before a few years ago. The inspector we had was working for them, and he took a job with LT. He left the KMS and went to LTL. That's why we switched companies. So I'd like to go back to Keystone Municipal Services for inspection services. And the inspector that they're recommending assigning to Collegeville Borough is certified in everything that we need, which is residential and also commercial inspections. The current, from LTL right now, the current inspector they have assigned to Collegeville Borough is only certified for residential inspections. And to get commercial inspections completed, they have to bring another guy in, which is an issue. But Keystone Municipal Services, the company's been around. I've known the owner of the company for like 25 years. Great company. Anything they do is inspections. They have about 40 inspectors in their company, so they have no problem with backup and expertise. And like I said, the guy they want to assign to Collegeville Borough is certified in everything. He's a local. He lives in Limerick, so we wouldn't have any problem with somebody shooting down here and doing a quick inspection. And he's been the gentleman has been an inspector since 2003, so he's plenty of experience. I don't know if you had a chance to look over the proposal, but the hourly rate for Keystone Municipal is $72 an hour. Currently, we're paying $74 an hour with the LTL, so that's a little bonus there, a couple bucks an hour. But I think we'll do much better with efficiency of work getting out, which would lower our billing. Like I said, we've been having billing issues with LTL. I think they've been overbilling. I've been like, I have to look at every bill to make sure that we argue here and there about billing. I think it'd be a good switch for the borough to save money and also get more expertise with inspections. And Keystone Municipal also has, years of experience with our commercial fire and safety program inspections that we want to hopefully get a couple, like the Perkins Bridge Hotel and some other things done this year. But next year, when we can go into a full force, they have a lot of experience in doing fire safety inspections also. So I'm just recommending that you approve tonight the Keystone Municipal Services proposal that I sent out with your agenda information.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Hearing of Keystone Municipal Services inspections. So could I have a motion?
So moved.
Marion and Gary as a second. Any further discussion? I think Jeff really laid out his case pretty well. We'll save money. Sounds like we're going to get a really good inspector. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, great. Motion carries. The next item is consideration of Resolution 2020-07, establishing guidelines for outdoor dining. So when Governor Wolf approved outdoor dining for all Pennsylvania restaurants in Montgomery County as of this Friday, June the 5th, we realized that our municipal code may stand in the way of them extending their dining to outside. So Jeff found a resolution that worked for us that another borough had. So we have drafted a resolution pretty much allowing all the businesses to carry on outside. So it means they can do sidewalk sales, but also all are allowed to expand outside. And then Jeff has come up with a real simple permit that they can apply for, easy to fill out, and we don't want to charge them anything. And then we'll work with each one with our fire company and our police and just make sure that everybody's safe. All of the restaurants know that they need to social distance. So some of the restaurants that are interested in setting something up, Bonjung has got an outside deck on 3rd Avenue. They're interested in putting seating out there and also seating down below the deck on the grass in between the sidewalk and the deck. We talked to Collegeville Diner. They're looking into putting a tent in their parking lot, and then it would be open on the side, so it would just cover the top. And then again, having socially distanced tables out there. We talked to Da Vinci's about that as well. So quite a few of them are interested. So I would like a motion for Resolution 2020-07, establishing the guidelines for outdoor dining.
So moved.
Marion? Second is Gary. Any questions? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Thank you. Now moving on to the zoning hearing board alternate, which is actually the last thing on the agenda that everybody had to sit through who's applying for that. I asked each of the council members to come up with their top 3 picks. And actually the top 3 were Penny Balzerite, Dante Rizzotti, and then it was both Michael Finger and Russ Mittman, but Russ Mittman let us know he wasn't interested in it. But by far, the top picks of everybody included Penny and Dante. So I think it's between those 2. So I'd like to do a vote first for Penelope Balzerite. So maybe we should do a roll call vote. And if you let me know if you vote for Penny. So I guess first one, Gary, what would your vote be?
Yes.
Okay, yes for Penny.
Yes.
Okay, Val,
Penny.
Penny, Kathy,
Penny?
Penny, Greg,
Penny.
Penny, Marion.
I was voting for Dante.
Okay, we'll just give your vote to Dante. And then my vote, honestly, I can't choose between Penny and Dante, but I'll go with Penny. So Penny, you will be our new alternate for the zoning hearing board. And Dante, you've got so much good construction experience. I'm really hoping that, I'm sure sooner or later, there will be another vacancy and we'll definitely be contacting you again to see if you're interested. So thank you both. And let me just see if we have to do anything else for that resolution. Oh, so we need to appoint Penny as the alternate to the zoning hearing board. So Dan, do we need a resolution for that? Yep, okay. So I'd like a resolution 2020-08 to appoint Penelope Balzerite as the alternate to the Collegeville zoning hearing board. So can I get a motion?
So moved.
Craig, second.
Second.
Okay, Gary, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I oppose because I voted for Dante. So
Oh, okay, sorry. All right.
sorry, my vote was going to Dante, so I have to
Not a
oppose
problem.
this, right?
I think he's a great guy. So, okay, so that concludes all the business on our agenda. Is there any other business anyone wants to bring up? Make the meeting even longer.
Just forgive me, but let me just go right back to my report for one moment.
Sure.
I think I do want to make sure that Bart's report is read into the minutes. I think it was very significant, and I really want him to be able to say it, but I think it was very significant. The chief of police statement of the Association of Montgomery County. Bart has been an officer with the Chief of Police Association, and then I was very proud of the fact that our own Collegeville police posted their own social media posts in expressing their own outrage with regards to the killing of George Lloyd as well. And I think that says a whole lot about the quality of community policing and the commitment of our police department to these human kind of connections. And so I really appreciate that. And I just wanted to make sure that we had that in the record.
Okay, thank you, Aide Sam.
If I can also thank Bart for his extra work that he put into planning for the past couple nights, just the monitoring that he's been doing of the town.
Yes, and I don't know if everybody knows, but what happened is that some of the looting came to Montgomery County, to Cheltenham, and Upper and Lower Marion, and of course, King of Prussia Mall. And then a couple of days ago, there were barricades at Providence Town Center. They were worried about that, and police were stationed up at the Philly outlets as well. And I had some of our Collegeville Borough businesses call me. They were worried about their shops and also worried that someone might come to Collegeville because we had the 3 jewelry stores here. So Bart did have extra people out and was making sure that all of our businesses and everybody was safe. And fortunately, it turned out fine, and there was no vandalism here. So yes, just because it didn't happen doesn't mean that somebody didn't work really hard to make sure it didn't happen. So
I also want to say thanks to you, Bart, and all your officers for everything that you do. And we do really appreciate your whole staff and think you do a great job. And we really enjoy and appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
okay, great.
I totally agree with that. I think you're doing a great job. Thanks.
Great. Okay, thanks. If there's nothing else, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Um,